Okay, figured I'd do another brief guide about one of Arc's other automatic manual option skills. This one's spell bullets. Get it much earlier on in the skill tree. It's probably best to explain what the spells are first before we do that. If you notice on the back of all of these, you have sort of two options, right? You have the Scarlet Cast and then the Scarlet Buff. Buff itself is not applied when you attack with the skill, right? So if I do basic charge, right? This is the cast, and these are the buffs. Little bullets that spawn back here, I guess, okay? You see, briefly it appears here, but then is immediately expelled from your gauge, right? So you have all these really nice buffs right here. You have one also on Gust, have it on Abyssal 2. Don't have it on this because this skill is just bad. Mostly for mobility, but that's not an issue. And I'll show you what all of the buffs look like too. So when you have Gust, little blue spell there, Abyssal, brown one, and then the red one for Scarlet, right? I mean, in most instances when you have an auto, if you're just comboing, you're constantly applying them. They're doing a little bit of their own damage as well. But you see up here, the buffs will just keep refreshing, right? Every time I land a new one, it'll keep refreshing the buffs. Just like that, see? So, these spells are obviously quite important to Arc's kit. They give you the buffs, and they make sure that you can also pass those buffs to teammates. What I would recommend is always keeping it on automatic, but there are certain circumstances where putting them in manual can help you. And you know, the difference is if you put it in manual, just give it a little right click, right? When I do these skills now, there's no ball, right? It's disappeared. Now we just have the cast of the skills here, right? No ball. That too, okay. No ball, like that. The reason there's no ball anymore is because we've taken it off of auto. It's now a manual. So these 5 slots are actually storing the spells, right? Now, you can keybind this if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. Arc already has a pretty full keyboard. I don't think this is completely necessary, but you can. I'll show you that you can. And now what you'll do is if you press this button, all those spells will come out at once. So now the gauge is empty again, right? And you have some of the spells, not all of them, because I spammed basic, right? So you don't have all of them. But just to show you what they look like when you have all 4 spells in, this is what your standard gauge would look like if you're prepping ahead of time, because that's basically what this is used for, right? You're storing these ahead of time. Now if I press F8, and even if I have this open, right, because we know the Abyssal one, the brown one, should make my damage and my boss go up. So as I press F8, they've applied. Yeah? Okay. So, on auto, this is happening without you even thinking about it. The spells are coming out, things like this. It's important to note that if you do the cast version, but the spell isn't able to hit the boss because it moves, you won't get the buff. Just remember that. This can catch you off sometimes. This can even be an issue in things like Seren. If you land the cast, but you take a miss bomb, and the spell lands when you are missed, you won't get the buff. Right? This can be quite damaging if it happens to be Hexa Scarlet Drive, because that's your crit rate. If you don't have 100% crit, you've gimped your burst. But obviously, just be very mindful of that in bosses that can give you a miss ball. So, the reason this topic has come up is somebody's asked me, how do I burst really fast without applying the buffs? Well, I am applying the buffs, but what I'm doing instead is I'm waiting before I go into the boss, or if I'm already in the boss with a party, I'll prep them on the boss before we move into the next phase. And whilst they're here, what you can now do is turn it back to automatic. Right? So the next hit you do will apply all of these buffs. There's quite a few reasons why this is useful. I think first and foremost, the most important one is arc buffs do not have infinite range. There is a range where the buffs will help. Where the buffs will apply to teammates, and if your teammates are too far away, they won't apply to them. So, if you rely on the combo of pressing your your amplifier and then trying to sort of combo the boss as it's moving, hoping it's going to apply the buffs to your teammates. Best case scenario is your teammates happen to all be in the same location and they get all the buffs. Worst case is none of them are, but most of the time what will happen is some of your teammates will receive some of the buffs, some will receive none, and some might receive all, so it's a mixed bag, right? But arc buffs are really good, especially for archers. So you want to make sure that these are always applied when you're bursting, because obviously it's burst window damage too. Now I know that playing with a bishop is something that's quite prevalent. Obviously people prefer it. Bishops require you to be very close to them because of benediction, so syncing with a bishop is quite useful if you're doing this prepping. Just to give you a quick idea before I show you what how the burst rotation might change between them. So in a lot of instances, if you're not already pre-prepping between phases, what you'll probably do is you'll do Divine Wrath and an Amplifier, and then you'll try to sort of combo as you go, hoping the teammates are close enough to get them, right? This is typically what happens. And then you'll press the rest of your buffs like this, you'll bind, and you'll burst. As normal, everything goes off, etc. Right? But that takes time, right? If you've pressed amped buffs, and then you're sort of going back and you're trying to apply them and things like this, you're losing time on the buffs. The buffs are strong. This is easily one of the best things in Arc. You don't want to be wasting that time in a perfect scenario, especially if you're sort of struggling with a boss or clearing it. So what you can do instead, I'll just get rid of these up here, get rid of Infinity Spell, just recharge, right? Let's say you're in Carlos P1, you've just finished the segment, you're looking to go through, your teammates push, okay, we're in the next phase. What you could do then is as you're black screening, sort of loading in, you press nice, and now instead of trying to touch the boss at all, because what you would have done, instead of just sort of chilling on that, when you see Carlos die in P1, he just sort of flops down and you just wait. Instead of doing that, you can open up your skill window. After you've prepped these on that last bit of HP he had beforehand, put it back to auto. Don't attack him. Let your teammates push him. Right? You don't need to touch him. Let your teammates push him. You go through to P2, and then as you're entering P2, you press dice, because you're protected, you're on black screen, it's not an issue. Now what you want to do is you'll have all of your burst buffs ready to go. This is on auto, and your spells are ready to go. So the only thing you need to think about now, especially, and this is more important if you have a bishop, okay? You basically use the bishop and the bind as your cue to do it, okay? But the only thing you need to think about right now is buffing up as normal, right? These buffs won't apply yet because they're still stored. It's not an issue, but you need to buff up. And as soon as that boss is bound, okay, you need to either press Blissful Restraint or basically any other attacking skill, and you'll apply the buffs instantly. And I'll just show you. If you are the binder as the arc, you'll see this empty out right now as I press Blissful. And now all of your buffs have been applied, and amps, because you've already pressed the amps before that. Assuming you are with a bishop, all of your teammates should be on top of each other. Nobody will be monkeying around, running away, and making it hard for the buffs to reach them. So all of the buffs are applied, and now you can burst. Now you know everyone's got the buffs, and you're sort of at peak potential for your party. Give you a couple of examples of where this might be useful. Not strictly tied to Carlos, because obviously everybody's at different prog levels. If you're looking at trying to do Lotus for the first time, as sort of a newer arc, Lotus P1 can be a bit tough. Obviously you can teleport through the lasers. You might not be comfortable with that yet, so perhaps your best option is to try to burst as quickly as you can on entry. Prepping these on some mobs outside might be really useful for you, because then you can go in, you can just buff up, press Blissful, they'll all apply instantly. You can press Beast and just, if you're quick enough, even if you press your 60-second skills before you go in, you can probably start pressing Agony before the laser even spawns in, which is obviously really good, because that's got a lot less pressure on you to try to dodge the laser and release Agony early and lose your damage and things like that. If you go through the bosses, it's not really that helpful in Damien, I don't think you're going to see a tangible performance increase in it. But if you look at something like Lucid and Will, definitely use cases that you can use there. Like obviously binding as quickly as you can on entry to will is useful because you don't have any moonlight. So as soon as you enter, you want to keep him still, stop him doing attacks, and then the only things that can hit you are atmospheric things. And hopefully you won't die to that. If you're, I'm assuming you're not lived yet, which is not an issue. You can enter recall to protect yourself. Doing that quickly is useful. When you get to something like Varicella, Chaos Slime, it's a bit of a game changer because once you reach a certain damage threshold, you can kill both those bosses before their respective tests begin. And that's you can do it without using the prep method, but it's a lot closer. I would always recommend doing that. If you looked at some of my other videos, you'll see because actually one of these videos presented this question, like how do I get to do it that fast. If you do this prep method with those, it's so quick. You can start bursting move in 4 to 5 seconds, and that essentially allows all of your cooldowns to come back before the test of that boss begins. Slime, Varicella, and then you can burst again. And there will be a threshold where a lot of endgame arcs can just 2-burst that boss without seeing a test, which is a massive time save. Because obviously, if you're trying to get through all of your bosses in the resources that you have at hand, some of those resources are expensive. Noblesse is not fun, waiting for its cooldown. So saving a test in Slime is a lot of time saved for your weeklies, right? For example. It's really good in Black Mage P1. Oh my good lord. Trying to do the combos in Black Mage P1 to apply buffs, especially to when you're in a party, is absolute AIDS. You don't want to do that. Make sure you're pre-prepping them in Black Mage P1. Wait for them to be bound, get in there, make sure teammates are there, apply them, start bursting. And I've already gone over the Carlos one. It's really nice to prep ahead of time in the room before. It can be using Kaling too. Kaling P2, people don't want to play Kaling P2. It's not fun. Horrendous damage uptime opportunities. Very lethal. You just don't want to do it. So in most instances, you'll note most parties what they'll do is they'll sit in Taiwo. So what you can do as an arc is you can pre-prep your gauge in Taiwo. When it's ready to push, just let your teammates push. There's enough people there. You don't need to touch the boss. As it's going through, turn them to automatic. Press your 60s, because you definitely won't need the full duration of these. You can press them ahead of time. As you land in Kaling P2, press Infinity Spell, Grandis, place Beast on the floor, press Pirate's Overdrive, and then literally hold down the button for Blissful, so that at the earliest possible frame, you'll just apply it. It'll apply it straight away. All of your buffs will just go straight into all your teammates. Everyone's amped up. You can then fully burst. Not an issue. And yeah, that's pretty much it for spell bullets. I'll see if I can go through the kit. Perhaps gives a couple more guides and some other things. But if you have any questions, or if there's anything you'd want to know specifically, just put it in the comments. And I'll go over it. But yeah. Thank you very much.